I just love a good success story, especially if it's about a woman. And this one is extra special because she is a true Renaissance woman from the 1970s, a true pioneer, a woman who broke glass ceilings, an artist, a fashion designer, a businesswoman, a woman of the world. Let's go meet Della Rounick.
I was born in a small town outside of Kozani, the name Neapolis. It was close to Kastoria, which was a beautiful town. But I don't remember much because 1 year old, my parents picked me up with no clothes, no furniture, no nothing, because they were burned from the Germans there and nothing was left. And we moved to Veria. So my hometown for me is Veria. I moved there 1 year old or something. We didn't realize how poor we were that time because we were not missing anything and nobody else was any better than us. And also, we were not hungry. We had nice food. My mother was extremely elegant with the means she had. We were well dressed. I always felt first there. That first means I could help others. And we had people in the house always for an extra food. And I lived like a very good childish years because είχαμε αυτό, what they say in Greek, thalpori, to speak. I know what that was. That's how I grew up. That's how I finished the school. I went to female girls, the lycée. And then I got in love when I was finishing school. And the boy I loved was from that town, but he was studying in Belgium. And he had to go back to Belgium, and I said I would go with him, and my parents would not let me go with him. I had to get married. So I finished school and I got married. And we both lived and went to France. He was doing his doctorat in Toulouse, France. And I enrolled in the university there, Faculté des Lettres et des Sciences Humaines, and I did, French philosophy and philology. And that was my first international step. So we arrived in Toulouse. Toulouse is a very old city in the center, a city of centuries there. And outside of Toulouse it was more modern, but that's where we lived. That's where my university was. Marriage was not working, and I saw that when I was, in France. And I said, no, I cannot go back to Greece. We have to go somewhere else, I don't know where. And I thought about it. I had a cousin in South Africa. He loved me. And we went to South Africa as immigrants, married. And I had no more secrets that the marriage is not good. So, I had now support. And of course, I started doing modeling not for any glory. I started doing modeling for money. I had no money. I had to do something. And my cousin helped me at that time. I went to an agency. I didn't even know English. I was speaking French, and they thought I was a French model, and I let it be. The French model. And the first job I had, it was the TV from Germany. They were doing like series of advertising there because of the good light. And I got like 3 movies, beautiful clothes, shiny clothes and all that, my hair, my this, my that. And I got paid 100 rent at that time a day. My husband was making 340 rand in the month. So I thought that was going to be every day, which it wasn't, of course. And when I had Wilhelmina agency from New York came to Johannesburg to pick up models. And they picked up 3, between the 3 was me. So, and I said, I will go, I will leave. And Wilhelmina supported us, well, and we had a visa for 4 months or something. I didn't do that well with Wilhelmina, but I did well for me, I got polish, I knew the photographers, I had some nice photographs, I got some money, I got some support. So I go back to South Africa. Now I am the model that came from New York. I got a lot of work. From now on, every picture I had taken, every cover was with my name. My name was Della Anthony, as a model, everywhere with a name. Big money. I get a divorce. It was easy, I was free, and I was happy, I was successful. I've done it. And I've done it from 66 that I left from Veria to France. It was 1970. All that happened. So now I'm free, I'm the model, of course, I have a relation. The next relation I have is a gentleman, he's divorced with two little girls, handsome, a French-Belgian, very handsome, very refined, who this guy now made me really international. We came to Greece, I went to my parents up to Veria, and he went to Belgium, and he was keeping in Grenoble a car, sports car, Lamborghini Miura. I didn't know what was that. He came from there via Yugoslavia to Veria and picked me up with a Lamborghini Miura, the yellow car, and we drove from there all the way to Athens in 3.5 hours. All the way, everybody knew that car is traveling and all that stuff. And we arrived in Athens and we went to Steel Palace. And I have a picture with the Lamborghini and him in the front. We did Athens. And then I went to Mykonos, and it was the first flight of Olympic Airways to Mykonos, 1971. And it's my first introduction there. But I'm the model, of course. I did some works here. I did a lot of TV ads. So everybody was happy in my hometown, especially my parents. I left and they would see me. They tell me, oh, we used to know what time they're going to be, and we used to go from windows to look to see you. So I go back to Johannesburg and I find out that my husband says I'm in exile in Greece, my ex-husband by now. And I go to find out why he says that. And he's shocked that he sees me. He tells me because of that interview at the Personality magazine, that I spoke against the junta. And I said things like I was playing the new Melina Mercouri kind of thing. Someone, they told the ambassador, and I'm in a blacklist, and they put me in jail. And I said, no, that's not true. But the truth was that I did say all that stuff in the interview. So from the next, I'm scared what's going to happen. So when Rufo Galli, now that I've met him, the last night I was in Athens going back to South Africa. I met him at the Bouzoukia place, and he sent me a Christmas card, and they told me who he was. I kept that card in case I need it for next summer. So next summer, I come to Greece, and I'm working, I'm doing movies, and I'm doing this and that, and someone tells me that this guy that I met last year knows that I'm here, still this guy, wants to see me again. And so I have a lunch with him, and me having in my mind what I've done and not saying anything, I try to be nice. So he asked me for lunch and dinner, and I work in the daytime, and lunch and dinner I'm with him, and I can see what power is, what power does to you. Everybody runs, everybody where you are, it is something not so nice, and especially when you're young, people have you this way. But he was very humble himself, very good manners, very knowledgeable, good conversation, and very careful. So one day I felt very free to talk about it. We had no relation, nothing. And I told him what I did, and he was shocked. He disappeared for 3 days. He came back 3 days later, and he gives me a file, and he says to me, look what you've done. And I start going through the file, and I see first my picture with my legs like this from Personality. Second thing, the interview. Third thing, a letter from the ambassador from Pretoria to the keep here. A letter from here to my hometown. My hometown wrote very good things for me and my family. Back here, back there, back and forth, letters like that. And now I'm start thinking why they were asking my mother for me and all that stuff. And last page, it is a handwritten letter. I'm dizzy and I said, I know those letters, but I cannot figure it out. I start reading, exohortat Your Excellency, the ambassador, blah, blah, blah. This below, Della Antony is my ex-wife by the name Della Antonis. I have nothing to do. So my own husband that did the whole thing. Expecting that I will end up in jail. So now the new guy, the Rufo Galli asks me, what do you want him to do to this guy, what he did for you? And I said, thought about it. I said, don't do anything. Because he did it out of love that became her tragedy, out of love. And I think he liked that. And immediately he asked me to go on a trip with him. And I said, how can I go with a trip? Anyhow, on that trip, he proposed me. Either we split and finish each one his way, or we start an affair, wherever it goes, or if you want to marry, I marry you, even that I'm never married and I'm against marriage, but because it's not your style to be like a girlfriend, I can marry you. So myself immediately said, I don't want to get married. I was just married, I was just divorced. And why should we separate? Myself, I left the third, answer, because it was nice, protected him and all that. And by that time, I started liking him. I don't think I was in love with him, but I started liking him. And I said yes, and that's how we started the relation. And by the time I came back from the trip here, everybody knew I was the fiancé. And of course I never, and I got engaged to get married this way. And then next thing he takes me to Papadopoulos' house to introduce me. And I'm there from nowhere in the Papadopoulos' house with the wife and him. And when Papadopoulos, the dictator, opens the door and he takes my coat off and he makes jokes and all that, he says, oh, you are from Veria. We both went to the army there. We were in the army. And you have a river there that's called Barbuta. And they say whoever drinks water from that river, he marries to a local. So that's it, he tells my, sure, that's it, be careful, that's what they say. Now I'm thinking myself, should I say it, should I not say it? Should I say it? And I did say it. It's another proverb that comes from there. And I said, yeah, the place that has a lot of fruit. I am from that place που έχει την αχλάδα που έχει πίσω την ουρά. That's a verb means from that the pear that it has the tail behind, meaning it's surprise to the person, which of course is heavy, but they thought it was funny, and they laughed, they liked me, whatever I was. And little by little I got in there. I got married in a big marriage. Papadopoulos was the best man with a wife. Everybody was there, except Ioannidis. This guy never was in my marriage. And 3 months later, we have only 3 months I was married. The Polytechnio, Ioannidis, that was not my marriage, had the coup d'etat, the second coup d'etat. He sent them all at home. Papadopoulos went to his home. My ex-husband then, they were not in power anymore. And at that time, I went to South Africa with his, he told me to go and get my South African passport, and I didn't know why. In 6 months, Ioannidis did the Kypriaco, and the whole thing started. And of course, when democracy came back, they put them all together, like they made it even sound that Papadopoulos did the Kypriaco, which is not true. They got in exile, they got on a trial, and they were sentenced to life sentence. And here I am, the model, the wife, the junta, and everybody waits for me to run, to leave, to whatever, and I decided to stay. So we started trials, and there were quite a few trials. There was one for Polytechnio, as they said, and it was one for the actual coup d'etat. Because if they had done it general, they had to put a lot of people in jail. They voted a law that the crime, it happened in one moment. In one moment means when the coup d'etat happened that night, only that people that were involved. So it was a new law. So, and with that, other people went for the Polytechnique, which my people were not involved, and others went for the coup, for the night of the dictators taking power. And actually the 3 top ones, Papadopoulos, the other thing, were sentenced to death. They changed it. And then my husband was sentenced to life sentence. And I decided to stay, having my background now. My mother was pro-king. My father's all family, the Pontius, they were communists. But not my father. Again, a lot of his family went already, they were in, when they lost the Civil War, they went to Russia. And the kids were very poor here, and we were supporting the poor. And a lot of my family were in Macronisos. And my mother now works on me And he said, you saw your nonna, your godmother, she has the husband so many years, she stayed with the kids. You have to stay. It was them and now it's us. We are like the victims of that civil war in mentality and in practice. That was the biggest mistake they did with, in Greece and everywhere else. When is a loser of a civil war, they condemn the whole family and they condemn the children instead of taking those children in, and the hatred is going to end up there. And this is even today. So myself, I had to be the example for the other side. And I stayed 10 years. From the age of 28 to 38, I was going from one jail to the other, from one island to the other. Plus, I was traveling around with messages they had for me to see this powerful person, that country, America, England, this and that, and all that stuff. And I thought I was doing something, but I was doing absolutely nothing. And I would have still been there if I had not found my husband, my next husband, Herbert Rounick, the American. Before I even met Rufo Galli, the years I was going to Mykonos, the second year, I met a guy, an older guy with a beautiful yacht, Black Swan, and a young girlfriend who was born in Salonika, he told us. That then he went to Istanbul, and from there he went to France. He was a little bit of multinational. And then they were living in Acapulco. He asked me at that time if I wanted to go to Acapulco, and I said, no, I have this guy here, blah, blah, blah. And he said to me, okay, let me meet this guy. And we went out for dinner, him, Rufo Galli, and the other guy that introduced me to all of them. And he realized that Rufo Galli was very serious, but it happened in this man's house in Rome, which was an amazing villa. Queen Frederica was living at that time. He gave them the house to live there when they were in exile. And he says to me, okay, if you decide to stay, let's help the king and the queen come back. And I took that as a mission as well, which I told that to Papadopoulos' wife. She was also pro-king. And we were talking all the time about them, the time when they had the power. So the same guy appears in my life with the young girl who got married to at that time. He was married with me. Appears again in 9 years later in Mykonos. And he asked me, what am I doing? I said, I'm there. He says, that long is too long. I admire you that you stay, but now it's too long. And he says to me, why don't you come to Acapulco for a holiday after, I said, okay, I'll go. At that time, I opened a boutique, to do something else. So I decided I'd go to Acapulco. I go to Acapulco, and this guy sends me, I had a boutique, I opened a boutique, says, stop to New York and go and see this friend of mine that makes beautiful clothes for your shop. So I went to see that Herbert Rounick on 7th Avenue. Very nice, very polite. He showed me the clothes and all that stuff. And as I was leaving his office, I saw 3 photos with the blonde ladies there. I leave, I go to Acapulco, I stay there for 10 days. The day before I was leaving, I come out from, the hacienda there with a bathing costume, and someone sitting there, in the bar with the white stuff, and he looks and I said, that's Guy from New York. So he comes over, he has his son with him, and we start talking and talking and talking. In the evening, he tells me, you're leaving tomorrow. I said, yeah. He says, did you fix your ticket? I said, what fix? I don't. Oh, if you don't fix the ticket, you can't leave. Give me your ticket. So I give him a ticket, and the next day he says to me, your ticket wasn't good anymore. I bought you another ticket for the day after. When a man wants a woman. Later on, I found out that the same afternoon, he told everybody, this is the next Mrs. Rounick. And I found out also that Felix did that on purpose because he knew him, he knew me, and he decided that will be a good match. I left the next day, even though, we had like all together, lunch, dinner, whatever. I come to Greece, and he was sending me for 37 days flowers. I opened the boutique for clothes, and we ended up in a flower shop. I had a husband in jail that I see. And he says to me, why don't you come to Paris? I have to go to see the Nina Ricci show. He was doing Nina Ricci. And I said, I'll come because I have to do shopping for mine. I go to Paris. I never came back. I left the shop to my sister with the 2 suitcases. I had a visa. He took me to America. He proposed right away to get married. I said, I'm married. He says, we have an engagement. So I was having an engagement in New York, 250 people at the Museum Towers apartment that he had bought. And I was the first one to move in. I filed for a divorce. I said, I have to go and file for a divorce, and I can have a divorce because my husband is sentenced for life. I have it immediately. So I have to go to Athens. He says to me, no, you don't go alone, I'll come with you. He came with me. So I told my husband that I'm going to get a divorce, and he wasn't happy about it anyhow. And I went with him again to the new one in Mykonos with him. Astir Palace and Mykonos and all that stuff. We go back and we filed for the divorce. And for some reason that never happened before, for the first time in Greece, they have a strike, all the lawyers and all the judges, and I cannot get a divorce. And I said, okay, that's a sign. I don't supposed to get a divorce. And I tell him that I have a seventh thought. Meantime, I live in this palace. At the moment, half floor, the museum is underneath, and I go to the museum and all that stuff is happening. My husband gets a shock. Says to me, strike? What strike? Who's your lawyer? Give me your lawyer. He calls my lawyer. I don't know how much you want. It's going to cost you. You put that signature there, find a judge to put another signature. I send you the money. I want the divorce here now. In 10 days, we had the divorce. And we said we're going to get married in December, and then married in Acapulco, the big wedding. The next morning, he's all dressed up with a briefcase. He says to me, get dressed, put a nice suit, put a hat on, and let's go to the corner. The judge is coming here. We're getting married this morning with 2 witnesses, the secretary and the CEO. And I got married in the corner of my apartment, 38th floor, looking down at the MoMA. And 2 weeks later, big party marriage in Acapulco, big fiesta, and mariachis and all that. And Felix Mesulan, the guy that I got married to my second husband to help the queen to come back. He fixed me up with a third husband, and he's the best man. Now I live in Manhattan. I live on the 38th floor in the Museum Towers. My husband is big on 7th Avenue, consider it really big, because he does all the pret-a-porter in licensing deals. For us, we sell them. Ole Cassini, black tie, the line. Jackie's designer. Bill Blass, pret-a-porter. Oscar de la Renta. Fabrice at that time, beautiful designer. Bob Mackie. Whatever Cher was wearing, I had the double myself. And I'm getting involved there because I have a different, from the modeling, from Europe, from the boutique, from that, I have a different taste. I get involved in all the lines with all the designers we had, and I met, of course, Bill Blass and Oscar and everybody that was there, And I get involved and I'm good, in different clothes. And he says to me, well, your name is Della Rounick. I was Rounick. It was the name of the previous husband because the name sounds Italian, Rounick. And you have your own line. It's called Nightline by Della Rounick. And you do this. And I start. We're launching a line with my name. Clothes that they were not that expensive. Beautiful evening clothes for young girls. Beautiful. And, oh God, I don't believe it. One night, Ole Cassini had written the book about Jackie's clothes and everything. And he had, when I became myself a CEO for the company after my husband passed away, I did all that line, all the clothes of Jackie, and we sold them all over America. So he was signing the book, and in the windows were all the clothes of Jackie that I had made. Being in America, I learned a lot of things from America. I learned something we didn't have here, that you're not jealous of your friend that's better than you. You try to be like him. You don't lie. You never lie. The biggest thing is a lie. You don't lie. Because I lied once in my life. I said I was French and it stuck with me. Then Of course, you help others, but in the proper way. You know, you have to be charitable in your life. And then I got involved myself because instead, sending just the check, I got in the charities involved in the Rita Hayworth Gala for Alzheimer's. I was 17 years there. I was in the Christopher Reeve Foundation, then later on in the Leukemia Foundation, because then my husband had died from leukemia and I got involved in that. We were patrons in the opera because I loved opera. Finally, from Toulouse, that I couldn't even go in New York, I was at the Met all the time. And of course, very involved with the museum, our museum. Now, because I was going all the time in the museum, besides my life, and I would buy the books, and I will go through the books. And it was the day that I bought a book of Van Gogh, very thick. And I had it open, and I have his 3 portraits, and I have a piece of paper like this with a pen. We're watching TV with my husband, and I'm drawing his face like this. And my husband sees that, and it was quite similar. He says, "What's this?" I said, "Well, that's some drawing." He said, "You did that now?" I said, "Yeah." "Really? You have that talent, big talent?" "What talent, you know?" He said, "You go to school." He calls his secretary, he says, "You have to find a school for Della." In 3 days, I was shipped to Art Students League back in 89. I got married in 85. And I am in Art Students League, and I go from room to room. I start doing the drawings, and I love the smell of the oil in the other rooms because at that time we're not separated. And I follow and I go to an oil class and I start painting. And I don't know how to use the oil drops and I put my fingers. And I remember Richard Pousset Dard, very famous artist now. I actually started in New York School. He said to me, "Go downstairs." And I said, "Downstairs, I'm no good." Downstairs was the sculpting. He helped me a lot, this painter, big teacher for me. I had him teaching me about 2.5 years. One day I'm painting in school, like this, sitting down and have a picture. And then I turn around, I see all the students, they are laughing, they're looking in one direction. And I look that direction, and there's my husband with the cap, the palto, the briefcase, the hat, everything. And he's smiling and he's looking at me painting. He left and he sent us champagne and sandwiches and everything, and they told me. He was very proud. He knew I was doing it all by myself. Through life, of course, as you grow up, you don't know what you're going to become. You don't know what you're going to learn. You only know your present, and you remember your past. That's how you develop. So it depends what happens, when it happens, and why. And it's all I know from circumstances. Que συγκυρίες. It needs a lot of things to come together for something to happen. But when that happens, you have the choice to choose this way or that. So you make the decision. If you took the wrong way, it's your fault. Nobody has to blame. Because nobody can prove to you what it would have happened if it didn't happen, what it happened. So that was your choice, and that's what it is. But as you grow, you change. It's not like you betray yourself. You learn from mistakes, from other people, and you fall in love for other reasons. Sometimes you fall in love because you need, and sometimes you need love because you need to give love. So myself, with my husbands, and the boyfriends, like what I told you, when I think of each one, all the others disappear. If I think of one man, the others is like they never existed. And then I come to the other one, it's the same thing. Each one has his own window and is the only one for the moment I think about it. I know what I learned. I'm a product of my men. I know what I learned from them. From my father, I took a lot. From some men, I liked what I don't like on a man. From others, I learned what I like on a man. But the love that I got from my third husband, Della Rounick, this is a very difficult love for any woman to find in life. When he knew he was dying, And I was crying, like, again, me, like, how can I lose you? You're the best thing that happened in my life. He said to me, do not cry. You're going to have a great life. First of all, you are younger than me, 17 years. Second, you're still very young. There's no, everything is free for you to do whatever you want. You're going to have a great life, and I never want you in your life to go out with someone because you need to and you have to. All the money is yours, and you're going to spend it with whoever you choose. Do you know any husband to say that? That's why I never got remarried. This was like real love. He loved me, for my own best, not for what was good for him. What keeps me going is I project and I imagine good stuff in me. Because when I have a bad thought in my head, the mind is never empty. Never. Either has good stuff in or bad stuff in. To push the bad stuff out, only you push it with good stuff. So I have actually some things, some icons that I have, some plans, and I say, okay, push that out now, and I put a nice project in front of you. I have like 5-year projects, 2-year projects, 1-year project. And I always have a stokos. Now that I know what I can do, that's how I got involved I went to school, I learned painting. That's what I didn't tell you before. I went to Acapulco one day, and all of a sudden I'm painting these paintings, these necks like that. In Acapulco, I did the 3 of them. When I brought them in, I thought at customs, what am I going to say to them? Oh my God, they're going to ask me how much I'm going to pay. And when I see the guy there, he says to me, is your paintings really good? Can I see? I said, don't I have to pay? He said, no, you don't pay anything. This is your art. And I said, oh my God, oh, it's so nice. People take you, being an artist. But then when people start seeing those necks, they didn't understand what it was. And everybody thought they saw a phallic thing there. Everybody was in a phallic. I said, I have to do the sculpture because I have to show the people what it was in my head. And that's how I went into sculpting later. And I made all these sculptures, that is started from Andromeda, that is actually Andromeda is a very powerful sculpture because people see it and say, that tells me something. I say, look around, look. Five religions, hands on. The prayers of 5 different religions. Hinduism with the phallic, the Shiva. And then is the Buddhism with the head. And then is Christianity looking up, from the clavicle. And then Islam with the thighs and the legs that go the different direction. And then it's Judaism with the big bra here that starts from Christianity and takes around all Islam because both religions start from there. And then when I say that, they say, oh my God, that's what it is. And that was a little bit prophetic because I started those paintings in Acapulco before I learned my husband was sick, but he had already started having little kids. When I was young, I used to look at the mirror, probably everybody does, and I look at the mirror and I say, who the hell I am? And when I think of all my life, and I don't say how, I said to myself, πώς άντεξα? How I did all this? How I went through that, always thinking a better day will come. It will be solved. I also, now that I have some years in my life, I go all the way back. And I can analyze what took me to where, and what took me to where, and where I made the wrong choice. So that is also an experience that helps you. The thing is what I want from me, because I did not have children, and I say my art is going to be behind me, My books, some books I write. It's Rounick today, Della today is a resume of all that. From my experience, you know what I envy mostly? The people, they know what they want to become in life from the beginning. To build a career, to really know what you want to do, to build a career on that thing, that is what you want to do, because then you do one thing and you do it well, and have a hobby on the side. You devote yourself, you do better. I also On the other hand, because I lived the life I lived and I have no family, I really like, in a way, and I envy the couples. They are very long time together. And they are together because not of need, but because of love. This is another big success in life. People think me, oh my God, you've done so much in your life. You did this, that, and that. Yeah, I did. But me, that's what I like. I like the family, that have the children and the family, like I was with my parents and my own family. I think that is the ultimate success in life, in here. To really choose your career that you love, to have a family, to be involved on, bringing up children and giving something to the world. This is what I admire today, and that's what I'll say people should do. I had in my life many homes around the world. My happiest place the last 20 years that gave me a lot also is Mykonos. It gave me the inspiration of doing the sculptures. The first painting I did back in school, it was the phallus that is outside the Museum of Delos, which is cut, has no head, and I put my hands on like this, holding it. And my husband took the photograph, and we were with Pierre Trudeau, the president of Canada there, who was laughing taking that picture. From that painting, I did the other 3 paintings with the next, and from that became the sculpture. Again, Delos is involved into that. My fear is that I never until now thought that I need a companion. I never decided anything, after my husband died, and he told me what he told me. I never said, okay, next year we have to do that. No, it was me, free. I do this, I do that, I will do this job, this house. I built 10 homes around the world by myself, even me by myself. I never thought that I need someone to help me listening to my problems. Now I do. Because now you have to start dealing with death as well, getting older. I fixed that. I have my will in place. I have my space here. All is done. I want to carry on with my art because art has no age and no end. I want to see some of my pieces somewhere. This Andromeda with the religion has to become big and be somewhere. And I want to have someone on my side to talk to and share my thoughts, because you're not supposed to be alone. And because whatever I went through my life, and I had problems, I didn't want any more problems. I didn't want any more men around me and any husbands, but that's not the case now. You need company. When I see something very beautiful, and the view from my house in Mykonos is fantastic, I said to myself, why don't I have someone now to see it with me? Because real happiness is not being alone.